The lock clicked before I reached the door. Rowan Vale stood between me and the exit, the spare locker key still warm in his fist, and I heard the bolt slide home. For 6 months, he'd been my after-hours gym rival, the man who matched my last set and never let me win easy. Now he'd trapped us both inside a dark gym after closing. "Why lock it?" I asked. He didn't answer with words. He set the shared protein shake on the bench between us. 2 straws, the way we always split it after training. That small thing undid me. I'd been about to leave angry. I'd grab my bag, ready to walk out on whatever this was, before he could pretend it was nothing. "You were going to go," Rowan said, "so I locked the door." I could have shoved past him. I chose to stay. That choice changed everything, because the second I set my bag down, the distance between us shrank to nothing, and neither of us pretended otherwise. So here's the question I've asked myself every night since. Why did he make it about me? The gym after hours is a different place. The overhead lights dropped to half, the machines cool and tick. Rowan leaned back against the lockers, arms crossed, and I watched his jaw work like he was chewing on a sentence he couldn't spit out. "You don't leave in the middle of things," he said. "You leave before people decide about you." That landed too clean. He'd read me in one line. I picked up the shake and drank, mostly to give my hands a job. He watched my throat, then looked away, and the look he gave the floor was the loudest thing in the room. "Say the rest," I told him. "There's no rest. There's always the rest with you." He pushed off the lockers. He stood too close now, close enough that I could smell the chalk and the clean sweat of the last hour. His hand came up and settled on my wrist, right over my pulse, and he had to feel how fast it went. Then he pressed the spare locker key into my palm and closed my fingers over it. "Keep it," he said. "You've had it for weeks, and you keep handing it back." A knock hit the glass. Morgan Price stood on the other side, closing tablet under his arm, doing the count. He looked at the locked door, then at Rowan's hand still near mine, then at the 2 straws in 1 cup. He didn't say a thing. That was the problem. Morgan always noticed the silence, and silence in this gym traveled fast. Rowan stepped back. Not far, just far enough to matter, and I felt the cold rush into the space he left. "Reopening parties Friday," Morgan said through the glass. "Clients, staff, the works. You 2 on the schedule?" "We'll be there," Rowan answered. "Together?" Morgan asked. Neither of us said it. Rowan unlocked the door, let Morgan back into the count, and the moment sealed itself shut like it never happened. Later, we took the stairs to the rooftop, the way we always did, to stretch out the training and cool down under the city. Rowan lay back on the mat and stared straight up. "I lock the door when I don't want the good part to end," he said. "That's all." It wasn't all. I've never met a man who says that's all and means it. He chooses me here, in the dark, with the key and the shake and his hand on my pulse. But the instant Morgan showed at the glass, he moved away. So that's the question I carried down the stairs, the one I need answered before Friday. Why does Rowan Vale keep choosing me when no one's watching, and let go the second someone is? The spare locker key was still warm in my palm when Rowan turned it over and fitted into the door at the far end of the row. Not the exit. The stairwell. "Same key," he said. "Opens the roof, too." I stopped. My after-hours gym rival had just handed me proof that the key I'd been guarding wasn't a loose end. It was a route he'd already mapped. Here's what I answered for myself in that second, because it had chewed at me all week. He doesn't retreat when I'm watched. He retreats when he's about to say something true. Tonight, he didn't retreat. He climbed. Up on the roof, the city hummed low, and the air was cold enough to sting. Rowan set the shared protein shake on the ledge between us. 1 cup, 2 straws bent apart. "Drink," he said. "You skipped after your last set." I hadn't told him I'd skipped. He'd counted. "You track my sets now?" I asked. "I track when you leave early." He said it plainly, like a man reading a schedule he'd written himself. That was the moment the routine cracked open in front of me. The late slots. The equipment left racked on my side. The stairwell timed so the cleaning crew cleared before I came up. None of it was practical. It was built around me. "Stretch," he ordered, softer. I sat, and he knelt behind me and pressed one warm hand flat between my shoulder blades, guiding the fold. His breath was steady at my ear. Mine wasn't. Neither of us spent the breath we were holding. Why did Rowan make this moment about me, right here, where anyone leaning off the parapet could see 2 men too close? Because he'd stopped pretending it was about the gym. "You could have just set it downstairs," I told the concrete. "Downstairs has a door I can lock," he said. "Up here, there's nothing to hide behind." His hand stayed. My pulse gave me away against his palm. Then the stairwell light clicked on below. Footsteps. Morgan Price stepped onto the roof with a clipboard he wasn't reading and stopped when he saw us. The shake, the 2 straws, the quiet that hadn't broken for a full minute. "Reopening walkthrough," Morgan said. His eyes went to the cup. "One shake?" "One shake," Rowan answered, and didn't move his hand fast enough. Morgan noticed the silence the way he notices everything, without a word, filing it. What does the shared shake mean now, with 2 straws and a witness counting them? It means Rowan built a thing he can't unbuild, and Morgan just saw the seams. Rowan stood, not away from me, between me and the stairwell, like the roof itself was another door he could hold. "We're done for tonight," he said to Morgan. To me, quieter, "Keep the key." I held it, and the same question from the lockers came back sharper. Why lock it? Why keep locking me somewhere warm and then flinch the instant a 3rd pair of eyes arrives? He'd shown me the routine was never practical. He still hadn't said the word. So the thing I need to know before the reopening party is this. If the routine is a confession he built with his hands, why can't Rowan Vale just choose me out loud? Rowan reached the top of the rooftop stair before I could ask my question, and he answered the old one first. He caught my wrist. Not a grab, a decision. "You were about to leave again," he said. I felt it downstairs. His thumb pressed once against my pulse, like he was reading the number off it. That was the reply I'd been waiting 2 nights for. He didn't step back this time. He stepped closer. The protein shake sat sweating on the ledge. 1 straw, 2 rings of condensation where we'd both set it down. I picked it up because my hands needed a job. The city hummed below us, low and orange. Up here, the gym felt like a secret we'd built with our own arms. "Say it then," I told him. "If the routine was never practical, say the word for it." Rowan opened his mouth, and the stair door groaned. Morgan Price came up carrying a clipboard and a flashlight he didn't need, because the rooftop lights were already on. He stopped when he saw us. Rowan let go of my wrist so fast the air felt colder where his hand had been. My rival, the one who locked doors to keep me from leaving, was suddenly checking his phone like a stranger. "Didn't know staff had roof access," Morgan said. "Spare key," Rowan answered. Too smooth. "Opens the lockers and the stair. Facility standard." That landed in my chest wrong. The spare locker key. The one he'd pressed into my palm 2 nights ago, like it meant only me. It opened this door, too. Every quiet stretch up here, every shared straw, had a second lock Morgan could have turned any time. The privacy I thought Rowan had given me was never fully mine. It was borrowed. Morgan looked at the single shake. He looked at the 2 condensation rings. He looked at how far apart we'd jumped, which was the loudest thing on the roof. "You 2 are quiet tonight," he said. "Not cruel, curious. Usually I hear you arguing about the bench order from the parking lot." He clicked the flashlight off. "Quiet's new." There it was, the thing I keep circling. Why does Morgan notice the silence? Because the silence is the tell. We can hide a fight. We can't hide the careful way we stopped fighting. "Reopening walkthrough," Rowan said, holding up the clipboard he'd taken from Morgan without either of them noticing the handoff. "Silas is checking the rooftop deck for the party." "At 11 at night," Morgan said. "He's thorough." Morgan let that sit. Then he nodded, slow, and went back down the stair. The door didn't lock behind him. It never had, for him. Rowan exhaled. He turned to me, and the careful stranger was gone, but so was the word he'd almost said. "Not like that," he started. "I didn't mean—" "You dropped my wrist like it burned," I said. "Why lock it, Rowan? Why lock a door to keep me in and then act like I'm equipment the second someone walks up?" He didn't flinch. That surprised me. "Because a locked door I can explain," he said quietly. "You, I can't explain yet. Not to Morgan, not to a party full of clients who will want the story short. I'm not a story." "I know." He picked up the shake, took the straw I'd used, drank without looking away from me. My rival, choosing the same straw on purpose while a witness was still counting his own footsteps below. "That's the problem," he said. "I keep choosing you where it's safe. And I can't figure out why I stop the instant it isn't." The key sat warm in my pocket, and for the first time it felt heavier than the man who'd given it to me. The gym was empty when Rowan set the shaker on the bench between us. Steel bottle, the shared protein shake still cool, the spare locker key resting against it like it had always lived there. I reached for the bottle first. My hand stopped over the key. "That's not the old one," I said. "No," Rowan didn't look away. "I had it recut." He was my after-hours gym rival. That's the word we both used when clients asked why we closed the floor together. Rival was safe. Rival explained the late hours and the 2-man silence and the way we split every set like a scoreboard. Rival did not explain the small square tag looped through the key's hole, or the 2 letters pressed into it, S H. My initials, stamped clean. I turned it in the light. You marked it. So it doesn't get mixed up with the house set. His jaw worked. It was a bad lie, and he knew it. The house keys were blank. The house keys got tossed in a drawer. This one had my name burned into metal. I unscrewed the shaker lid to give my hands something honest to do. A slip of paper was folded under the seal, dry, tucked where the protein wouldn't touch it. 4 words in his blunt handwriting. Drink before you leave. Not the note, the care in the note. He'd thought about the moment I'd walk out, and he'd tried to hold me 1 sip longer. Rowan. I set the lid down slow. Why do this in the dark every time? He crossed the space between us. He took my hand, the one with the key, and he closed my fingers over it. His grip stayed. Warm forearm near mine, breath even, that sharp jaw close enough that I could have leaned 2 inches and ended the question a different way. Because in here I get to mean it, he said, low, rough. Out there I have to explain it. Then explain it to me. His thumb pressed the key deeper into my palm. He didn't say the word. He never said the word. But he held the grip past the point where a rival lets go, past friendly, into something with weight. A locker door clicked shut down the row. We broke apart clean. Too clean. Practiced. Morgan stepped around the end of the bank of lockers, gym bag on one shoulder, eyes moving from Rowan's face to my closed fist to the shaker with its lid off. You two done? Morgan asked. Easy voice, not easy eyes. Wiping down, Rowan said. Right. Morgan didn't move. He looked at the space we'd just left between us, the 2 feet that had been 2 inches a second ago. It's loud in here when nobody talks. You notice that? A whole empty gym, and the loudest thing is the 2 of you not saying something. Heat climbed my neck. Rowan bent to the bench like the towel needed him. Party's Friday, Morgan went on. Clients, staff, the works. Doors open, lights up. He let that land. Everybody watching. Why lock it? That's the joke going around, you know. Somebody keeps locking the front after hours. His mouth almost smiled. Wonder who? Habit, I said. Sure. Morgan hitched his bag. He nodded at my hand, still shut around the key I hadn't put down. Nice key. Then he was gone, footsteps fading toward the stairwell up to the rooftop where we'd taped so many stretches into something like dates. Rowan straightened. The towel hung useless in his fist. He knows, I said. He suspects. Same thing by Friday. I opened my hand. The key sat there with my name on it, warm from his grip and mine. A gift now, not a tool. Proof somebody could hold up in a bright room and ask about. You made this real, Rowan. You can't unmake it before the party. He looked at the key. He looked at me. And for the first time, he didn't reach to take the moment back. The stamped key was still warm from Rowan's palm when he set the shared protein shake between us and stopped pretending. You wanted to know why I can't keep this quiet forever, he said. Here's why. He turned the shaker so my name faced the mirror wall, and every reflection threw it back at us, a dozen times, bright and unhidden. My after-hours gym rival had just answered Tuesday's question without a single soft word. That was the payoff I'd been chasing. The key and the shake were never gear. They were the only sentences he trusted himself to say. He rolled the spare locker key across his knuckles like it weighed more than iron. One day, someone holds this up in a full room, he said, and asks what it means. I'd rather they ask me than find out on their own. He stood. The rooftop door was propped, and the night came down cool through it, carrying the low hum of the empty floor below. He crossed to me slower than a rival should. Close. Closer than the last time, when Morgan's footsteps had split us apart. This time, no footsteps came. His hand found my wrist, not to correct my form, just to hold it, thumb over my pulse like he was counting it. Silas, he said, and my name in his mouth was quieter than the fans, quieter than the pipes. He leaned in. I felt the heat come off his jaw before I felt anything else. My eyes closed. Everything I'd guessed for weeks narrowed to the inch of dark between us, and for once he wasn't turning me into facility standard, wasn't reaching for the safe version. He was reaching for the reckless one. Then he stopped. Not because a witness appeared, not because a door opened. He pulled back an inch and pressed his forehead to mine instead, breath uneven. Not like this, he said. Not stolen. If I kiss you here, in the dark, after hours, I'm just proving I'll only do it where nobody can ask. His honesty was the blocker this time, and it hurt worse than any interruption. I opened my eyes. He was right, and I hated that he was right. So you'd rather want me twice than have me once in secret? I said. He didn't argue. He just kept his forehead against mine, and the spare locker key stayed pressed between our hands, warm on both sides now. The The private thing had grown too heavy to carry in the quiet. Wanting had turned into a decision neither of us could set back down. That was when I heard it. Not a footstep, nothing. And the nothing was the problem. Morgan Price stood in the propped doorway, saying not one word, a towel over his shoulder, watching the shape we made and choosing silence over the greeting he owed us. Why does Morgan notice the silence when everyone else fills it? Because silence is the only place two men like us ever tell the truth. Rowan straightened, but slower than before. He didn't drop my wrist. That was new. "Morgan," he said, even, not scrambling. Morgan nodded once, the way you nod at something you already knew, then tipped his head toward the stairs. "Friday," Morgan said. "Clients everywhere. Staff. You planning to lock a door in front of all of them?" Then, softer, the two words that had followed me all week, taped inside my head like a sign. Why lock it? Rowan looked at me before he answered him. That look was the choice. "Maybe I won't lock it at all," he said. Morgan left us with that, and I understood, finally, that the door and the key had swapped jobs. Locking it had meant keeping me. Unlocking it, in front of everyone, would mean keeping me out loud. He handed me the shaker again, my name to the mirror, and closed my fingers around the spare locker key. "Take it home," he said. "I want you to have it when the room is full, not just when it's empty." I walked to the late elevator with a key that weighed more than the man who gave it, and I couldn't stop asking the question he still hadn't answered out loud. If he'd choose me in the dark and stop himself for my sake, why was he still choosing me only this way? Rowan caught my wrist before I could sling my bag over my shoulder. "You're limping," he said. Not a question, a verdict. Behind him, the after-hours gym sat dark, only the emergency lights buzzing low over the empty racks. I hadn't told a soul about the calf I'd tweaked on the last set. He'd watched me favor it for an hour and stayed quiet until the second everyone else was gone. "It's fine," I said. "Sit down, Silas." He steered me to the bench by the lockers and knelt on the rubber floor without a flinch. Right there, in a room where the cameras could wake any minute, he pressed his thumb into the tight knot under my knee. That answered the question I'd carried up the elevator all week. He wasn't hiding me tonight. He wasn't waiting for the dark to swallow us either. He'd simply chosen to take care of me where a witness could walk in and let the risk sit in his hands. "You keep tracking my body like a coach," I said. "I track you like you matter." He didn't look up. His grip was patient, certain, the same grip that had wrapped the spare locker key into my palm 2 nights ago. The key sat on the bench between us now, stamped with my name, warm again just from being near him. Then I heard it. The bolt. He'd thrown the lock when we came in. "Why lock it?" I asked. The thumbnail question. The one clients would ask on Friday if they saw the door sealed with 2 men inside. "So nobody hurries you out before I fix this." He finally met my eyes. "You leave the second something aches," I noticed. He rose, crossed to the fridge, and built 1 protein shake, not 2. He shook it, cracked the lid, and handed it to me first. 1 cup, shared. He drank after me without wiping the rim, and that small, ordinary thing landed harder than any speech. My after-hours gym rival, feeding me from the same shaker like it was the most natural agreement in the world. "You could do this at noon," I said, "with the floor full." His jaw tightened. "I'm working on that." Up on the rooftop, the city glittered, but he kept me on the bench, warm, iced calf propped on his leg. He rolled the muscle in slow lines. The rooftop door stood open beside us, cool air drifting over the sweat on my neck. And still, he didn't glance up to check who might see. I watched his sharp profile and understood the shift. The key wasn't a secret handshake anymore. It was a promise he hadn't learned to say out loud. The lock rattled. A code beeped wrong, then right. Morgan stepped through the side door with a clipboard and stopped cold. He looked at the sealed main door, the single shaker in my hand, Rowan's palm still on my leg. He didn't smirk. He didn't tease. He just went very still, and the silence stretched until it hummed. "Inventory," Morgan said at last. "Didn't know anyone booked the floor." "Nobody booked it," Rowan said, not moving his hand. "I locked it." Morgan's eyes flicked to the key with my name on it. He read the whole thing in one breath. The care, the lock, the shared cup, and I watched him decide not to say it yet. That decision cost something. He set his clipboard down like he needed both hands free for what he wasn't saying. "Party's Friday," Morgan said quietly. "Doors open. Everyone watching." He let that land. Some things don't lock so easy in a bright room. He left. The door clicked. Rowan's thumb had gone still on my calf. "He's right," Rowan said. "Then unlock it," I told him. "Not the door, the rest." Rowan looked at the key, then at me, and for the first time he didn't reach for the dark to answer. He reached for my hand, but he still didn't say the word. Why does he keep choosing me exactly this way? Close enough to feel it. Careful enough to leave it unsaid one more time. Morgan was waiting at the top of the rooftop stairs before I reached the last step. He had my answer before I found my question. "So he locks the door for you now," he said. Not a guess. A fact he had been holding. I stopped one stair down. The city hummed below us, cold air off the roof, the gym dark behind its glass, 2 floors under our feet. He locks up every night, I said. That's the job. He locks it after you fight, Morgan said. When you're about to walk out angry, he locks it so you stay. He tipped his chin at my hand. And you carry his key like it's yours. I looked down. The spare locker key sat in my palm, warm from being held too long, my own name stamped into the metal. I had stopped hiding it in my bag weeks ago. That was the mistake. You don't hide what already belongs to you. Why lock it? Morgan asked, softer now. And that was the wrong question, because it was the exact one I couldn't answer without giving Rowan away. A man doesn't lock a rival in. He lets him leave. We train late, I said. That's all. Silas. He said my name like he was setting a weight down. I've watched the 2 of you for a month. 1 shake, 2 straws. He hands you protein like it's a ring. I noticed the silence because you 2 are the only ones who think it's quiet. The stairwell door opened below us. Rowan came up 2 steps at a time, dark shirt, jaw set, the shared shaker sweating in his grip. He read the space between Morgan and me in one look, the way he reads a bad lift before it fails. He crossed to me first. Not to Morgan, to me. He took the shaker I hadn't finished and drank from the same straw, deliberate, watching Morgan over the rim. Then he set his shoulder against mine and left it there. On the roof, in the open, where Morgan could see every inch of it. He asked good questions, Rowan said to me, low, steady. Doesn't mean we own the answer tonight. I'm not asking for me, Morgan said. Friday you won't get a locked door. You'll get clients, staff, a room full of people who ask out loud. If he's yours, say it before someone else names it for you. That landed. I felt Rowan go still against my arm. The small, honest stillness of a man hearing his own fear read back to him. Is he wrong? I asked Rowan. Quiet. Just for us, even with Morgan 2 feet away. You'll drink from my shake in front of him. You'll lock a door so I don't leave. Why is this the line? Rowan turned the key over in my hand with 1 finger, my name catching the rooftop light. Because a locked room only costs me, he said. Friday costs you too. I'm not letting them turn you into the thing I couldn't say. Morgan watched us a moment longer. Then he stepped back toward the stairs, giving us the roof. 2 days, he said. The door opens whether you're ready or not. He left. Rowan didn't move his shoulder. Neither did I. The key was warm. The shake was half his now, and the silence Morgan had broken didn't close back up. It just sat there between us, named, waiting for a room I couldn't lock. And I finally understood the shape of his fear. He would risk himself in the dark all night. He wouldn't risk me in the light. The question wasn't why he hid. It was why he still kept choosing me at all, when choosing me out loud might cost him everything he'd built. Rowan set the spare locker key flat on the rooftop rail and spun it with 1 finger. It rang against the metal and stopped, pointing at me. You asked why I keep the door locked, he said. You never asked when I cut this. I kept my voice even. When then? The first night you tried to leave angry. He didn't look at me. You had your bag on your shoulder. You were done. I went to the office and cut a 2nd key before I even knew what I'd say to make you stay. The shaker sat between us, half the protein shake gone, the straw still leaning my way. I picked it up because my hands needed something. That was the answer I'd wanted for weeks, and it landed heavier than I expected. So the shake, I said, that wasn't recovery. It was a stall. A short breath, almost a laugh. You don't walk out mid-drink. I learned that fast. Every night, I found one more reason to keep you here another 10 minutes. The stretch, the cool down, the door. My after-hours gym rival, admitting the whole routine was a set of small nets built to catch me before I got to the elevator. I should have felt trapped. Instead, I felt chosen in a way I didn't have a shape for yet. Say the rest, I said. He closed the last inch between our shoulders. His jaw was tight. When he spoke, it was low, right at my ear, the city humming somewhere below us. The rest is that none of it was practical. Not the key, not the shake, not one locked door. He stopped. His mouth stayed open on the next word and didn't spend it. It was you. That's as far as I can go tonight. That was the reversal. Not a kiss. A confession with its last third bitten off. He'd handed me the machinery and kept the reason it ran. Why stop there? I said. You cut a key for me a year ago. You can't finish one sentence? Because finishing it out here is free. He turned the key so it pointed back at himself. Friday, it costs something. I want to say it where it costs, or it doesn't count. The stairwell door eased open behind us. Morgan stood in the gap, gym towel over his shoulder, and he didn't step out and he didn't speak. He just clocked the two of us leaning into one shared shake, the key glinting on the rail, the silence sitting where a word should be. He'd told me a bright room wouldn't lock so easily. He was letting the quiet prove his point. "You heard that," Rowan said to him, not a question. "I heard nothing," Morgan said. "That's the problem. You keep almost saying it." He let the door swing. "Why lock it? Half your clients will ask that Friday. You want them hearing half of this too?" He went back down. Rowan didn't chase him. He picked the key off the rail and pressed it into my palm, warm from his finger, and folded my hand around it. "Keep it," he said. "Not to hide behind, to carry into a room I can't lock." I held the key and the half-empty shaker, and I understood the trade. He'd given me the truth of every night we'd spent alone, and kept the one word that would make it public. He'd choose me in the dark and choose me again on this rooftop, but the final inch belonged to Friday, to a floor full of people who could ask him to his face. So the question wasn't why he hid anymore. He wasn't hiding, he was rationing. And I stood there, chosen and half-answered, wondering why a man who cut a key for me a year ago still needed one more day before he could say what he already knew. The shaker sat on the bench between us, and for the first time, I didn't reach for it. Rowan noticed. Of course he noticed. My after-hours gym rival reads a room better than anyone I know, and he read the 6 inches I'd left between our shoulders like a warning. "You're not drinking," he said. "I'm not thirsty for half of something," I said. He went still. Behind him, the machines stood dark. The mats rolled, the front glass black with the closed street. The spare locker key lay next to the shaker, the notch he'd filed into it catching the low light, and I understood that both of them meant the same thing now. Care I could only have when nobody could see it. "Silas." My name came out careful. "Don't do this after I told you the truth. You told me a truth. You saved the last word for a room that cost you something." I picked up the key and set it in his palm, folding his fingers over it. "I'd rather leave than be your best-kept secret." That landed. He didn't chase me. He walked to the door I'd expected him to lock, and he didn't lock it. He held it open instead, cold air sliding in, the party posters for Friday taped to the glass, reading, "New doors, same family." I hated how much I wanted him to shut it and keep me. "Go up," he said quietly. "One flight, then leave if you still want to." So we went up. The rooftop was raw with wind, the city humming under us. He set the shaker on the ledge and left it there, untouched, a thing he wasn't going to use to pull me back. "I'm not hiding you because I'm ashamed," he said. "I'm hiding you because the second they know, you become the thing people talk about instead of the thing I keep." "That's still hiding." "I know." He said it fast, like it hurt. "I know it is." I heard the stairwell door before I saw who came through it. Morgan Price stepped onto the roof with a clipboard he wasn't reading, and he stopped when he felt the silence. "You two always this loud?" he said, dry. Neither of us answered. That was the mistake. The quiet stretched, and Morgan looked from Rowan to me to the shaker on the ledge, and I watched him do the math he'd been circling for a week. "Why lock it?" Morgan said, and it wasn't a joke this time. "Half the staff asks me that. A rival locks a door after hours for the guy he supposedly can't stand?" "Friday, there's no door to lock, Rowan. There's a room full of clients and a room full of glass." "I'll handle Friday," Rowan said. "You'll handle it how?" Morgan didn't move closer. He didn't need to. "Because he's about to walk, and you're letting him." That was the part that cracked me. Rowan wasn't letting me. His hand had found my wrist somewhere in the last minute, not gripping, just resting. His thumb over my pulse like he was checking I was still there. Restraint. Everything he did was restraint, and I was so tired of being reached for in the dark. "Let go," I said. "Or say it up here, where only he can hear." Rowan's jaw worked. The key was closed in his other fist. For one breath, I thought this was the moment. Wind and rooftop and a witness small enough to survive. He didn't say it. He let go of my wrist to press the warm key back into my hand instead, curling my fingers around it the way I'd curled his. An answer that wasn't the answer. "Keep it," he said, "even if you leave." I left. I took the stairs with the key biting my palm and the shake still on the ledge, and I couldn't tell if I'd won anything or just proved my own wound right. Why does he keep choosing me like this? In every way but the one that counts. The door stayed open. That was the first thing I clocked walking in Wednesday night. Rowan Vale, my after-hours gym rival, stood by the lockers with the spare key flat on his palm, and for once, he wasn't reaching for the bolt. 11 weeks he'd locked us in the second the last client cleared the turnstile. Tonight, the latch sat quiet. "You're not locking it," I said. "No." He turned the key over once. "Ask me why." I didn't. I set my bag down and waited, because that was the whole shape of us now. Him rationing, me refusing to beg for the next inch. He'd told me Friday would cost him. He'd told me the hiding was protection. He'd pressed this key back into my hand at the bottom of the stairwell and said nothing that counted. So the open door was new information, and I read it like a clue. The reopening party's in 2 days, he said. Clients, staff, Morgan. There won't be a door I can lock in that room. I know. I'm trying to stop needing one. He walked to the bench where the shaker sat. Our shake. Same routine, 1 scoop, cold water, split between us, because buying 2 felt like admitting there were 2 of us to feed. He filled it. Then he did the thing that broke the pattern. He didn't drink first and hand it over half gone the way he stalled every night. He held it out to me full. You start it, he said. That was the reversal. Small. Enormous. For weeks, the shake had been his delay, his excuse to keep me on the rooftop 3 minutes longer. Handing it full meant he wasn't buying time anymore. He was giving it. I drank. He watched my throat move, and neither of us pretended it was about protein. Rooftop, he said. Last time before Friday changes the terms. Upstairs, the city hummed below the rail. He set his shoulder against mine on the ledge, the way he had since week 3. Except tonight, he didn't leave the polite half-inch. He closed it. His arm ran the full length of mine, warm through 2 layers, and he let it stay. Why did you make this about me? I asked. It was the question I'd carried up 11 flights of nights. You built this whole place. You could keep it clean. Why me? Because clean was never the point. He kept his eyes on the skyline. I locked the door the first night because you were about to leave angry. I told myself it was practical. Somewhere in there, it stopped being practical, and I kept locking it anyway. And Friday? Friday, I can't lock anything. He finally looked at me. That's the part I can't keep private, Silas. Not the wanting. The wanting I could ration forever in the dark. But you're done with the dark. You proved it when you walked out. So I don't get to keep this small anymore. It grows or it dies in that bright room in front of everyone. The key was still in my palm, cutting a warm line into the skin. I turned it toward him. Then take the key back, I said. If it's not a lock, you don't need it. He didn't take it. He folded my fingers back over it. Keep it. Friday, you'll see what it's for. Down the stairwell, a voice landed flat and deliberate. Doors open tonight. Morgan Price, jacket over his shoulder, watching from the landing. First time in 3 months. Funny thing to notice, an open door. Rowan didn't pull away. That was the tell. For 11 weeks, he'd have stepped back a foot the instant Morgan appeared. Tonight, his shoulder stayed pressed to mine. You notice a lot of silence, Rowan said. Somebody has to. Morgan's eyes moved to the key in my hand, then to the shaker between us, with my straw in it, not his. Friday's going to be loud, just so you're both ready for that. He left us the last word and took the stairs down. The shake sat between us, my mark on it, his hand still over mine. The routine that hid us for 11 weeks had just quietly stopped hiding anything. Why did you keep choosing me like this? I said. In the dark, at cost, every single night? Rowan pressed the key deeper into my palm and didn't answer. He was saving the word again. But this time the door downstairs stood open behind us, and I understood the thing that scared him worse than saying it. On Friday, there would be nothing left to close. Stay, Rowan said, and his hand closed over my wrist before I could reach the locker row. Not hard. Just enough to make me turn. The gym was dark except for the emergency strip along the floor. 2 treadmills still ticked as they cooled. The door behind him stood open, the way it had stayed open all week. And that was the answer to the thing I'd carried down the stairs the night before. He couldn't lock it anymore. He'd stopped reaching for the bolt. Friday was 2 days out, and he already knew there'd be nothing left to close. You told me the door leaves you no place to hide, I said. So why are you still holding my arm like a secret? He didn't let go. He turned my wrist over instead, pressed his thumb once against the pulse there, and set the spare key into my open hand. The same cut key, warm from his pocket. Because the key stopped being about the door, he said. I looked down at it. For weeks, it had meant a locked room, a stalled shake, an hour nobody could interrupt. Now the door was open, and he was still handing it over. It didn't lock anything now. It just meant he wanted me to keep coming back. Then what does it mean? I asked. He stepped closer, close enough that I could smell the protein shake we'd split an hour ago. Chocolate gone slightly warm, his straw and mine in the same shaker on the bench behind him. Close enough that the last inch was the only thing left between us. Why lock it? He said quietly, almost laughing at himself. Morgan keeps asking me that, loud, in front of the whole staff, like it's a joke. It isn't a joke to you. No. His forehead nearly touched mine. I locked it because you were about to leave angry that first night, and every night after, I told myself I was protecting the hour. I wasn't. I was protecting the answer. His mouth was right there. I felt the pull of it, the heat of a man who was my after-hours gym rival before he was anything softer, the one I'd traded reps and silence with for months. I didn't move back. I waited for him to close it. He didn't. He stopped a breath short, and this time nobody walked in to stop him. No door, no witness, no timing. Just him, choosing the pause. "Say it then," I whispered. "There's no door to hide behind now." "I know." His voice cracked on the second word. "That's the part that scares me. The lock did the honest part for me. It kept you without me ever having to say why." That was the wound, laid out plain. He could reach my pulse, hand me the key, share the straw, stand this close. He could do everything except the last word. And with the door open, the almost kiss wasn't blocked by an interruption anymore. It was blocked by him. I heard the far light click. Morgan stood by the front desk, not moving, not speaking, just watching the space between us go quiet. "You hear that?" Rowan said. "I hear nothing." "That's Morgan noticing," he said. "He goes silent when he sees something real. He's louder about the door than anyone, but when it counts, he shuts up and waits. Same as me." I closed my fingers around the key. "Then we're both waiting on a man who won't say the word." He pulled back the last inch himself. Not away, just enough to breathe. "Friday," he said. "The room will be full. Clients, staff, Morgan, every door propped for the party. And I'm out of places to keep you quiet." I turned the key once in my fingers. "Then stop keeping me quiet now," I said. "You've got the dark, no crowd, just Morgan pretending he isn't there." Rowan looked at the open door like it had betrayed him. "The dark's easy," he said. "I've said everything to you here except the one thing. I need to say it where it costs me, where I can't take it back." I understood, and hated that I did. 2 more nights of almost was starting to feel like its own kind of lock. The reopening lights hit every corner I used to hide in. No dim rack, no locked bolt, just clients in fresh gear, staff with clipboards, and music low enough that voices carried. I stood near the front desk with the spare key hot in my fist, because carrying it had become the only steady thing I had. Rowan worked the room like the rival I first met. Easy jaw, sharp shoulders, shaking hands he barely knew. My after-hours gym rival, they still called him, the guy who used to race me to the last set. Nobody in this crowd knew he raced me to the rooftop after. Then I saw the shaker on the desk. 2 straws, 1 cup, set out before the doors opened in plain sight where any client could pick it up by mistake. "You left that out," I said when he passed close. "I know what I left out." His voice stayed low. "I wanted it there." Morgan stepped between us with a clipboard he wasn't reading. He looked at the shaker, then at me, then at the key showing white through my knuckles. "Funny thing about this place," Morgan said, loud enough for the nearest clients to slow down. "He locks the door every night after you leave. Everyone jokes about it. Nobody asks the obvious." He tapped the desk. "Why lock it?" The question landed like a dropped plate. A trainer glanced over. A client stopped stretching. Rowan didn't step back. That was the first thing I noticed. The thing he'd trained himself to do gone missing. He crossed the last of the floor and stood shoulder to shoulder with me, close enough that the crowd read it, and set his hand over mine on the shaker. "Because he was leaving angry," Rowan said, to Morgan, to the room, "and I couldn't let the last thing between us be a door." His thumb moved once across the back of my hand, in front of the clipboards, in front of the mirrors that showed all of it twice. "You're doing this here," I said. My chest hurt in a new place. "You told me the dark was cheap." His eyes held mine while the room pretended not to watch. "So I'm paying for it where it costs." I turned the key over in my palm, and it wasn't a private promise anymore. Everyone near the desk could see me holding it, could see him standing where he'd never stood, could see the 2 straws he'd planted like a flag. Morgan waited. He didn't gloat. He just refused to let the silence go comfortable again, arms crossed, eyes steady, forcing the next thing to be said out loud. Rowan's grip tightened on mine. His mouth opened. The word was right there, close enough that I felt him gather it. A client called his name from across the floor, waving him toward the rooftop tour he'd promised the group. Staff turned. The moment cracked open into schedule and noise. Rowan looked at me, then at the stairs, then at the crowd waiting for their host. Rooftop, he said quietly. 10 minutes. I finished this out loud up there, not down here where it's easy. He let go last, the way he always let go last, and walked toward the door he'd never locked tonight, because there was nothing left to hide behind. I stayed by the desk with the key biting my hand and both straws in one cup, and I understood the cost he'd finally agreed to pay. He'd stood next to me. He'd said the reason out loud. He'd let a room full of witnesses watch him choose where to stand. He still hadn't said the word. The rooftop door swung shut behind us, and the party dropped to a hum under our feet. Rowan reached the rail before I did. He had the spare key out again, turning it slow between two fingers, catching the string of party lights on its worn teeth. They're coming up in 10, I said. The tour group. Morgan's bringing them. I know. He didn't look at the stairwell. He looked at the key. You keep thinking I locked that door to hide you. I didn't answer. That was exactly what I thought. 12 nights of it. Why lock it? He said Morgan's words flat, like reading a sign. That's the wrong question. The right one is what I was locking out. He set the shaker on the rail between us, both our straws still in it, the shake gone lukewarm and untouched. Neither of us drank. That mattered. For once, the object just sat there and made us say things instead of covering for us. First night you almost left angry, he said. I bolted the door because if you'd walked out into that front room, someone would have clocked you as the guy I train with after hours and nothing else. A footnote. My after-hours gym rival. And you'd have believed them, because you already leave before people can shrink you. My chest went tight. He'd named my wound like he'd carried it for me. I wasn't keeping you a secret, Silas. He turned, finally, and the half-inch we always kept became nothing. His forehead nearly touched mine. I was keeping you from being made into one. There's a difference, and I let you feel the wrong one for 12 nights. You could have said that, I breathed. I'm saying it now, on a roof, with a room downstairs. His voice dropped. The key wasn't a lock anymore. Last week, I put it in your hand as an invitation, and you knew it. The shake stopped being an excuse to stall. I just needed the reason to catch up to the thing I'd already been doing every single night. That was the reveal I'd ached for since the bolt first clicked. He hadn't hidden because he was ashamed. He'd hidden because he was afraid the world would make me smaller than I was to him. Then say the last of it, I whispered. He opened his mouth, close enough that I felt the shape of the breath. A footstep hit the metal stair, then another, deliberate, unhurried. Morgan. He came up alone, ahead of the group, and stopped 3 steps down, looking at the two of us pressed close over an untouched shake with a key held between our hands. They're right behind me, Morgan said. He didn't sound surprised. He'd noticed the silence up here the way he noticed everything. You've got about 90 seconds before this stops being your choice. Rowan didn't step back. That was new. 12 nights he'd have stepped back. He just closed his hand over mine around the key and held. 90 seconds, he repeated, quiet, to me alone. That's more than I've ever given myself. Below us, the stair began to fill with voices climbing, and I understood that whatever Rowan had been saving for a room he could control, he was about to lose the room. The tour group would decide the timing now. Not the lock. Not him. Footsteps hit the metal stairs behind us. More than one set, quick and cheerful. The tour group climbing into the exact moment Rowan had spent 3 nights trying to schedule. I felt the timing leave his hands. I saw it leave his face. So I stopped waiting for him to find the perfect empty room. There would not be one. There was only this one, loud and rising, and I was done being loved on a delay. Not like this, I said, low and even. I'm not standing here while you wait for the crowd to thin. Choose me where they can see it, or let me go before it costs me more. Rowan's jaw set. He looked at the stairwell, then at me, and something in him settled instead of flinching. He reached into his pocket and took out the spare locker key, warm from being carried all night. He did not slide it into my hand quietly the way he used to. He pressed it into my open palm and closed both of his hands over mine, in the light, with the first heads already cresting the rail. Hold it, he said. You keep it now. Not the lock. You. The metal bit my skin, and I let it. A client laughed somewhere near the door, and Rowan did not step back. Instead, he picked up the shared shake from the bench, the same shaker, our 2 straws still in it, and he drank from mine. In front of them. Slow, deliberate, eyes on me the whole time, turning a private habit into a thing anyone climbing those stairs could read. My chest went tight in a way that had nothing to do with the workout. You didn't say the word, I told him, quiet. I said the truer one, he answered. I'm showing it before I can shape it. Give me that. Morgan reached the top step then, clipboard down at his side, and he did not perform surprise. He just looked at the key in my fist and the single shaker between us and said the 2 words he had been circling all week, flat and unavoidable. Why lock it? The tour group filled in behind him, curious, half listening. Rowan turned toward the question this time instead of away from it. Because I wanted him kept, he said, loud enough to carry. Not hidden, kept. There's a difference, and I stopped being able to fake it 3 doors ago. Nobody spoke for a breath. A staff member glanced between us, doing the math, and I watched Rowan let them. He did not close the distance to whisper. He held it, hands still on mine, over the key, on a rooftop with no bolt to throw and no closing hour to hide behind, choosing the seen thing over the safe silence. You keep doing this, I said under the noise, half a laugh, half an ache. Every time it counts, you show me and stop short of saying it. His thumb moved over my knuckles. I know, he said. Ask me why after they leave. But the group was not leaving. Morgan folded his arms, unhurried, planting himself like he meant to watch how this ended. And I understood, standing there with the warm key claimed in my hand and my straw still cool from his mouth, that Rowan had run out of rooms to save the word in. There was no next quiet door, only witnesses, and a man who kept choosing me in gestures he could not quite turn into speech. So the question sharpened into one I could no longer ignore, one I would make him answer before the roof emptied. Why, after every public cost he had already paid, was he still choosing me this way, in acts instead of the plain, spoken truth? Rowan turned back toward Morgan before I could breathe. The tour group had spread across the rooftop, phones half raised, most of them still catching the skyline behind us. Morgan stood by the stair door with his arms crossed. He asked it again, flat, loud enough to cut the wind. Why lock it? I waited for Rowan to save it in some smaller room. He didn't. He looked at me instead. My after-hours gym rival, the man who had beaten me on every bench for 2 years, stepped close enough that his shoulder pressed mine where a dozen strangers could count the inches. Then he did something new. He took the shared protein shake out of my hand and drank from my straw in plain daylight. He held the shaker up, both our straws crossed in the same cup, and he spoke to the whole roof. Because he was leaving, Rowan said, and I couldn't let him walk out one more time thinking he was somebody I'd only touch in the dark. Nobody moved. A client near the rail lowered her phone slowly. That was the thing I had been aching for, wasn't it? Every other time he had shown me. Now he was talking, and he was talking to people who signed his paychecks. I felt the spare locker key still warm in my fist, the one he had pressed there 10 minutes ago with both hands. It meant something louder now, not a private ritual we passed back and forth after closing. A thing witnessed. A thing on the record, in front of the reopening crowd. Rowan. I said it low, just for him. You don't have to do this here. I know. He didn't step back. That's the point. Morgan uncrossed his arms. He is the kind of man who notices when a silence changes shape, and this one had. 2 years, Morgan said, and you two never went quiet like this before. Now the whole roof's holding its breath. That's your answer, Vale. Not the lock, the look. So why did Rowan make this moment about me, in the one room he couldn't control, when he'd guarded the words so carefully every night the gym went dark? I thought I understood him. I thought the reveal on this rooftop would be the last of it, but he wasn't finished, and that scared me more than the crowd did. He turned the shaker in his hand, the crossed straws catching the light, and set it against my chest like he was handing me back my own heartbeat. The key opens the door, he said, quieter now, so I had to lean in past the wind. You already know that. What I want them to know is that I stopped locking it to hide you. I lock it so I get you to myself before I share you with a room that only wants half. A trainer behind us said my name, soft, surprised. I heard it land. I felt the exact second the private thing became public knowledge, and there was no walking it back down the stairs. You could have said that in an elevator, I told him. My voice wasn't steady. You didn't have to burn it in front of clients. Yeah, I did. His jaw tightened, that sharp line I'd studied across the floor for 2 years. An elevator is another dark box, Silas. I'm done choosing you in boxes. Morgan watched us both, and for once, he had nothing blunt to add. The tour group had gone still. My chest was full of the warm shaker and the sharper truth pressed under it. He had said the reason out loud. He had chosen me where it cost him. And still, somehow, he was choosing me in the same careful, guarding, half-inch at a time way he always had, like the crowd was a thing to survive instead of trust. Why was he still doing it like this, even now, even out loud? What was he still holding, one flight above the word he'd finally spoken? Rowan didn't answer me on the rooftop. He turned, took the stairs 2 at a time, and the whole party spilled down after him like a tide he couldn't outrun. I caught his sleeve at the landing. 1 flight, I said. You said all of it up there. What's left down here? The door, he said. Nothing else. Down on the main floor, the machines sat dark and quiet, the mats still smelling of chalk and cleaner. The reopening banner sagged over the front glass. Clients clustered near the water station, staff hung by the desk. And the front door stood locked, the way it had stood locked the first night, the night this rival of mine, my after-hours gym rival, turned a key on me so I couldn't leave angry. Morgan was already there, arms folded, reading the quiet before anyone spoke. He looked at Rowan, then at me, then at the small crowd that didn't know what it was waiting for. "It's gone quiet," Morgan said, low, only for us. "You people are never quiet." Rowan pulled the spare locker key out of his pocket. The same key, the one he'd pressed into my palm on the roof, that I'd handed back at the top of the stairs without knowing why. He held it up so the room could see it catch the light. "Everybody here has asked me the same thing tonight," Rowan said, his voice carried without rising. "Why lock it? Why lock the door on the one man who kept trying to walk out?" A few clients laughed, unsure. Morgan didn't. "I locked it because I wanted him before I had to share him," Rowan went on. "I kept him up on that roof with a warm shake and a spare key, because down here, I was a coward about it." He crossed to the front door. "I'm done being a coward one flight below the truth." He fit the key into the front lock. Not the locker, the door. The door out. He turned it. The bolt slid back with a sound everyone heard. Then he pushed the glass wide open to the street, to the cold air, to anyone who wanted to walk through and see. "There," he said, and he looked only at me. "It's open. You can leave any time you want. That was always the difference. I never locked you in. I locked the world out until I was brave enough to let it in with you standing next to me. I didn't move toward the open door. I moved toward him." He took the shaker off the desk, our shaker, the crossed straws, the shared protein shake gone room warm hours ago, and he didn't drink. He just held it between us like proof. "Silas Hart," Rowan said, in front of clients and staff and Morgan and the open street. "This is the man I choose. Not quietly, not one flight up. Here, with the door unlocked, where everybody can watch me mean it." The room made a sound I felt in my chest. Someone clapped. Morgan let out a slow breath and finally unfolded his arms. And that, Morgan going soft, told me more than the applause did. Rowan set his forehead against mine. Half an inch, then nothing. No crowd took it this time. No timing stole it. His hand came warm around the back of my neck, steady, unhidden. "You're not a footnote," he said, quiet, just for me now. "You're the whole page." I closed my fist around the spare key between our chests, next to the warm shaker, and for the first time the metal didn't feel like a question. It felt like a door already open. Outside, the cold street waited. Neither of us walked through it. We didn't need to leave to prove we could. But even then, with the bolt back and the room watching and the word finally spoken flat and plain, I felt his hand hold me a half-second too careful, still choosing me in that guarding way, as if some last thing hadn't been set down yet. The front door stood open, and neither of us moved toward it. That was the first thing that changed. Last week, Rowan would have found a reason to close it. Now the street breathed in cool against the mats, and he let it. The party had thinned. Clients drifted out with gym bags and easy goodbyes, and the after-hours gym went quiet in that way it only does after everyone leaves. Rowan wiped down a bench that didn't need wiping. I watched his hands. He still moved like a man guarding something. "You can stop cleaning," I said. "They're gone." "I know." "Then come here." He came. That was new too. He crossed the floor without checking the door first, without measuring who might still see, and he stopped close enough that I could smell the protein shake on his breath. I held up the spare locker key. It had stopped feeling like a question. Yesterday it was the whole argument between us, the thing he pressed into my palm instead of the word. Tonight it was just a key, warm from my fist, ours. "You held me too careful," I said, "even after you unlocked it. Half a second, every time. I felt it." Rowan didn't dodge. "I know that too." "Why?" He took the shaker off the bench, the one with our crossed straws still in it, and he drank first. Then he handed it to me, straw side turned my way, the way he always did it. "Because careful is how I learned to keep the things I don't want to lose," he said. "The lock was never on you." "Why lock it?" Morgan kept asking. "I locked the world because I didn't trust it to be gentle with the one thing I finally wanted out loud." That answered it. Not the door, not the crowd. The care itself was the last thing he hadn't set down, and now he had. I drank from the shake where his mouth had been. It tasted the same as every night we'd traded it, and completely different. Footsteps on the stair. Morgan came down from the rooftop with 2 water bottles and a look I couldn't name. He stopped when he saw us standing that close, with the door wide open behind us. "You two are quiet," Morgan said. "You're never quiet." "We ran out of things to argue about," I told him. Morgan set a bottle on the counter. He noticed the silence the way he noticed everything, and I saw him do the math. No locked door, no half-inch of distance. The shaker passed hand to hand in front of him without a flinch. Huh, he said. That was all. He didn't tease. Somehow that was louder. When he left, Rowan let out a breath I hadn't known he was holding. That was easy, I said. It won't always be. He said it plainly, not as a warning, more like a promise to keep facing it. There'll be another party, another room, someone who wants me to pretend for an afternoon. And? He looked at me, sharp jaw catching the low gym light, my after-hours gym rival who had spent months choosing me in gestures before he'd risk a sentence. And I'll take the key out in front of them, he said. Every time, until it stops being brave and just becomes true. He reached out and fixed my collar, slow, unhurried, no half-second cut short. His hand stayed at my neck. The door stayed open. Nobody made him hold me lighter. I leaned into it. The gym hummed around us, empty, hours. The rooftop dark above, where all of it had cracked open. But even then, with his hand steady and the world let in, I caught the way his eyes flicked once toward the stair Morgan had climbed, then back to me, softer, deciding something. He was already choosing me again, before anyone asked him to. And I wanted to know why a man who'd said it all still needed to keep choosing me this same quiet way when no one was left to watch. Keep it, Rowan said, and folded the spare locker key into my palm. We were up on the rooftop one last time, the gym dark below us, the reopening party swept away hours ago. He still stood a half step too careful, the way he always had. I'd caught it the night before, his eyes flicking toward the stair, choosing me again before anyone asked, like he had to earn it fresh each time. I set the shared shaker on the ledge between us. 2 straws, crossed, our old habit. You keep doing that, I said, choosing me when nobody's here to make you. Why does it still cost you something? He didn't dodge. That was new. Because careful is the only way I know how to keep a thing, he said. I locked the door because I was scared, not of them, of losing the 1 hour that was ours. Why lock it? Morgan had smeared it across the mirror as a joke weeks back. Now the answer stood in front of me, plain, no bolt between us. You don't have to lock anything anymore, I said. Rowan looked at the key in my hand. Then he did the thing I never saw coming. He pulled his own key ring from his pocket, worked the master key off the loop, the one that let him seal the whole floor after closing, the one that made the after-hours gym his to guard. He dropped it off the ledge. I heard it hit the alley below, small, final. Rowan, I don't want the option, he said. As long as I can lock the world out, I'll keep doing it. So now I can't. That was the cost. Not a speech. A key he'd never get back. A habit he'd made impossible. My after-hours gym rival, the man who built our whole romance out of controlled hours, just gave up control. Behind us, the roof door opened. Morgan, of course. He had a gym bag over one shoulder and that flat reed in his eyes. You two done rearranging the building? He said. He threw the master key off the roof, I told him. Morgan looked at Rowan a long second. Then he nodded, slow. Huh, he said, softer than any tease. He'd caught the silence between us change again, the way he always caught it. He didn't fill it. He let the door stay open behind him and went back down. That was Morgan's whole gift. He never let the quiet stay comfortable until it was true. Rowan stepped in close. No crowd now. No timing to cut it short. His hand came to the back of my neck, steady, the way it had been the night he first admitted the lock was never shame. I chose you out loud, he said, in front of clients, in front of staff. But out loud in a crowd is easy compared to this. Compared to what? To choosing you when no one's watching and it doesn't win me anything. His forehead came to mine. That's the part I was still holding. I wanted a witness because a witness meant I couldn't take it back. And you deserve to be chosen with no witness at all. So that was the last thing. Not a secret. A fear that quiet love wasn't proof enough. I pressed the spare locker key back into his hand and closed his fingers over it. Then we keep this one, I said. Not to lock anybody out, just so you remember the hour was always mine. He smiled. It reached his eyes the whole way, for once with nothing guarded behind it. We stayed up there while the sky went from bruise to soft gray. The shaker between us, straws still crossed. His shoulder against mine, my rival, my whole page. No door to open, no door left to close. He passed me the shake. I drank, passed it back, ordinary as breathing. Down below, the front door stood open to a street that could see right in, and neither of us moved to shut it. That was the last light. Not the party, not the crowd. Just 2 men on a rooftop, a spare key gone quiet in a warm fist, a shared shake going flat and staying sweet, and nobody left to hide from.